Hey, friend, it's great to be with you here on this Church Tips podcast today. I'm Dick Hardy, your co-presenter, and today we're hanging with my good buddy Nathan Teagarden from the great city of Kansas City. Nathan is the North Campus pastor and Connections Director for Summit Park Church in the Kansas City area, doing a great job there. And Nathan and I have known each other for a long time, but he has just come on board with us to help create the brand new course in the Church University resources called the Connections Track. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't gone to churchuniversity.com, I'd encourage you to do that. You go to churchuniversity.com and you'll scroll down right away. You're going to see the Connections Track, which is open today. You couldn't get it yesterday, you can get it today. And we are offering for a very limited number of days, I think we've got this maybe 7 or 8 days, you can get the Connections Track for 2/3 off. Now, when I talk to you about the Connections Track, and Nathan's going to flesh it out a little more, this is a fully comprehensive course that really is going to take you A to Z in the area of connections with people who visit your church. So we're going to talk to you a little bit more about that. Certainly the link for you to sign up is right here in the show notes. But Nathan, talk to us a little bit about the Connections Track and kind of what the evolution of all this was that brought it to this point today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I think that connections is the future.
Yeah,
I really do, because you can get great content. Your people in your church can get great content really anytime they want, all over the place.
Yeah.
Like they can hear great sermons from great preachers right on their phone at any point. So what is the thing that's going to be distinctive about the local church? It really comes down to this idea of connections. That people can have relationship with you in your church and other people in your church, versus they're not going to be able to have that relationship for somebody they're watching, across the United States. So this is a really important topic as we move forward into the future and everything's more digital and all that. It will never replace the necessity for community, and that's what Connections is all about.
Well, and I just have to tell you, I appreciate so much the detail you put into this Connections Track. I mean, this has got what, like 8 modules, and you're covering various things. I'd love to have you give us a little, just to flesh out a few of those in there. But I want to tell you, friend, this track, this course of training is going to help take your church to places you never imagined possible and help connect people. You know the drill. People come visit your church, and then they might come back. They might not. And it is so frustrating for us as pastors because we work hard to get people there, and yet they don't connect. And this course is going to help you do it. Give us a flyover, some of the kinds of things you're talking about in the course.
Well, just to kind of that point at the very beginning, I talk about the importance of connections and really how when people are connected, man, they will, and this isn't a compliment to the church, but they'll put up with a lot of things in the church that they don't like, but because they've got a friend, they've got a community of believers around them, man, they will stick it out in a church. So just that goes to show the importance. Then on the flip side, when people don't have a friend, they haven't made a connection, man, they don't stick. And you can have the coolest lights, you can have all the bells and whistles, you can even have a great building, but ultimately buildings, lights, all that stuff aren't going to keep people.
Yeah, right.
And that's where Connections really comes in. So I talk about that in the first module, just how important that is and give you some tools along the way. But what I'm really excited about, and this I think is so important for churches to know and understand, that Connections isn't complicated in concept, but you definitely need a pathway, a Connections a track, a way for people to flow down. And so it really, the modules 2 through 7 talk about how we can take somebody from being what I define as a viewer, so somebody that knows about your church, maybe drives by your church, is familiar with it because they've seen it online, all the way to being a disciple. So that's because that's the goal. Jesus said, go and make disciples. And so that's what we want to do. And that's what I talk about in the track and go through each step along the way of how you take them to the next stage. That
is so good. And I got to tell you, when you jump into the Connections Track, you're going to get a whole boatload of bonuses. Nathan and I had talked about this earlier, just off the video, and the number of things that are going to be available to you are going to make, literally, those bonuses are going to make it worth the price of admission entirely. And just to let you know, this thing, starting today, for just a short number of days is literally 2/3 off. You're never going to find anything like this. Let me mention to you, too, because I'm a little bit of a math nerd. You know, the average church, you say a church of 100, 200 people, is probably, their average giving per capita is probably about $2,000 per man, woman, and child. And this thing retails for $11.97, and you're going to get it today for $397. So you invest $397 and get one person, and the average giving per person is $2,000. It's kind of like a no-brainer. How it really is fiscally a great investment for the church.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It's an investment.
It is an investment. It's not an expense.
Money.
You're not spending money. You're investing.
Yes,
to your point, I had a church. I'll leave it nameless because it had a rich history. But it fell on hard times, and I said, there are people that stay at that church for one reason. It really wasn't it wasn't a very good church anymore. Why did people stay at that church? They're friends.
Yeah, that's it.
Their friends are there. And then you've seen it. You've seen it. Great churches, all the bells and whistles, all the everything, and people don't stay there. Why? Because they can't get connected. So anyway, I kind of get on my high horse here.
Yeah, and honestly, that's what the thing that we're all trying to solve is, specifically if you're dealing with connections, which really all church leaders are dealing with connections. We're trying to connect people, but it's the disappointing phone call that you get when you finally follow up with someone and they're like, hey, why, we're going to check out some other churches. Like, oh, I just feel like it never got connected. And you're like, no, this is such a pain point. And it's like, how can we solve this? How can we figure this out? Because if we can minimize that and maximize helping people make a friend and get a community, because that's when they stick. And ultimately, that's what we're after. We're not just trying to get people out to our church one time. It's not about the big event or but it's about consistently keeping people connected to church, ultimately to Jesus. And then that's when they become disciples, So that's what this is all about.
Well, I tell you, if you'll click the link here in this podcast and make that investment, you're going to be able to solve the very kinds of things Nathan's talking about.
Yep, absolutely.
Any others? Any other things that you want to just mention to us in the modules that come to mind? Yeah.
And again, it just kind of comes back to this pathway system. You can do kind of an organic connections, follow up, kind of just handle it yourself. Okay, I'm going to call people, or I'm going to try to get them plugged in. But I think if you want to scale and be effective, to really make sure that no one falls through the cracks, then you've got to have a good system in place. And that's what this does. It gives you the why, like why this is important, really paints the picture of like, this is the future, this is where we're going. Well, I feel like we're already there actually. But it's only going to become a bigger deal. And then it gives you a pathway and actual tracks for you to lay and roll down, and then helps you to know how to implement it into your culture. Like one specific model is dedicated to that, to where how you can build your team and help them to understand the importance of having a connections team. So then you can now execute this. So this doesn't just stay in the ideas realm, because everybody's got a great idea, but it's about execution. So this is a really great resource. I believe it's going to help a lot of churches and help you right where you are to connect people.
I'm telling you, friend, I've seen every one of these videos. And they are at a level that is going to truly meet you right where you're at. Now, if you've already picked up one of the Church University courses, either preaching, church board, KidMin, or audio, you realize the quality of what we're trying to. This is then that and more. It truly is going to be one of the best investments you're ever going to make. To be able to get it at 2/3 off, and I'm just not sure we would ever have. Probably the chance of that is slim and none. So now is your time to get that, make that investment, and begin to see people matriculate into the life of the church. Because we want them to do that. Because ultimately, Nathan talks about this in the Connections course. Ultimately, we want to take them from being a viewer, to being a fully devoted follower of Jesus, and then a multiplier. Of more people. So
absolutely.
Parting shot. Any final thing you want a pastor to remember?
Man, just get this and implement it. Don't just get the resource, but then actually put it into practice, because it will make a huge difference in your church.
It really will. Thanks so much, Nathan. I really appreciate the investment of time and effort that you put into this. And I'm going to tell you, this man wants to partner with you. So just click the link, grab the 2/3 off, and we're going to look forward to seeing you in the Connections track of Church University. Make it a great one today, and be blessed.
Hey, Jonathan here, real quick before you go. Everything in your ministry rises and falls on your leadership. So investing in your leadership is essential to staying healthy and growing the ministry. And that's why I want to invite you to join us inside the Leaders.Church membership. This online streaming service for pastors gives you access to more than 300 videos plus training material to level up your leadership and improve your ministry skills. If you'd like to do that, I want to invite you to go to Leaders.Church/boost. Again, that's Leaders.Church/boost. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Church Tips Podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.